As the planned End Bad Governance protest slated for August 1st gathers momentum, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu today entered an emergency closed-door meeting with top traditional rulers, security chiefs, and governors of his party, the ruling All Progressives Congress. Also, the Department of State Services, the DSS, today warned against the planned nationwide protest against the hardship in the country. The agency said that it had already identified sponsors of the planned protest and warned them not to proceed with it, as it is not in Nigeria's interest. The security outfit warned that it had intelligence that the planned protest would be hijacked by hoodlums to cause chaos and extreme violence in the nation. Also, the Defense Headquarters says the planned nationwide protest has the potential of degenerating into anarchy and a reign of terror based on the situational analysis by the Military High Command. The Director of Defense Media Operation, Edward Buba, disclosed this while briefing journalists on the operations of the armed forces today in Abuja. Well, joining me on the program to discuss this, and of course the planned protest for August in Nigeria, is Omoshola Deji. Is a political scientist. He, of course, is joining me virtually. Thank you for your time.
Problem.
All right. I mean, there seems to be a lot of reaction lately as regards this planned protest for August in the country. Now, for some, they are saying, you know what? It's about time. The cost of living is high. The expenses when it comes to, the inflation, the state of the economy, isn't favorable. And for many, they are saying, you know what, let's hit the streets and let the leaders know, where we stand. While from some quarters, they're saying, you know what, Nigerians, please be patient with the leadership. Let's hope that things will get better. And let's be patient enough to allow some of these policies to mature. I would like your reaction to some of this, reactions trailing in as regards to protest.
Well, my reaction is that if the economic condition in Nigeria today is anything to go by, definitely most Nigerians are not satisfied with it because the price of goods and services are tripled. So if you have an economy like that, whereby the price of things are tripled and the salary remains the same, and you have a government that have not led by example, definitely you would know that people will be displeased. And that displeased, when it lasts over time, will eventually lead into a protest. So nobody can say that the protest right now is not justified. That doesn't mean that the action that government are taking is not necessary. Don't forget that the four top candidates in the presidential election all campaign about the removal of fuel subsidy. And the removal of fuel subsidy is the genesis of the economic meltdown that we have today, and subsidizing the foreign exchange market. But when the president came on board, he said, no, fuel subsidy is gone, and he cannot continue to subsidize naira against the dollar. That is a very good initiative by the president. A right step, right policy, but if I can say, unintelligently implemented, because you need stakeholder consultation. You need to meet with people. You need to study the market before taking such steps. And if you now take such steps, okay, you fail after taking the step to make sure that you take action that will curb the effect of such steps in the society itself. What am I trying to say? The Nigerian government has over a year after the removal of fuel subsidy to have taken great steps, giant steps that will cushion the effect of that removal on the people. But it took the effort of labor for us to have a new minimum wage in the country. So that means that if labor have not taken the bull by the horn, maybe there will be no new minimum wage in the country.
But Omoshola, is protest actually the way to go? Because some experts have said, you know what, there are better avenues to draw the attention of the government to the plight of the people? I mean, there's engagement, from the grassroots level to the top. You can meet with your local government leaders, and then you meet with your state leaders, and then, of course, such grievances will get to the top. Some are saying that protest, particularly at this time, might be dire, given what we saw at the last major protest, that is, talking about the NSAS. What's your take?
Well, first, I can tell you that all those steps that you highlighted are not effective in Nigeria. The security details of some local government chairman or some councillor, it is so enormous that you can't even move close to their gate. That is the kind of system we practice in Nigeria in such a way that it is easy for you to see Joe Biden in the US than to see some local government chairman in Nigeria. So when you have such a system, protest may not be the best, but it is the language that government understands. And it is not just the Tinubu administration. Successive government in Nigeria, if ASU have not gone on a protest, there will be no change.
You said protest seems to be the language the government understands.
Say that again.
You said protest is the language Nigerian government understands.
Yes, exactly. Protest is the language that Nigerian government understands, because when you are dialoguing, calling for meetings, Nigerian government doesn't take action at the right time. Like I said, the government have had over 1 year to have, cushion the effect of the removal of subsidy and floating of the naira on the people. And don't forget that in Nigeria, what we practice is what I call a foreign economy. What do I mean by that? Check around you. Most of the goods you have around you are not produced in Nigeria. So if those goods are not produced in Nigeria, that means you need foreign exchange to purchase them. So if you are operating a foreign economy and you have removed subsidy on your currency, definitely you have to take urgent steps in terms of production, in terms of harnessing of local resources, in terms of reorientation, so that people will not say, okay, they don't want to wear designer, but they want to wear Ankara, but nothing was done. And I don't buy this idea that the security agencies will come and say, okay, do not protest because it is harmful to the country. That has been the constant lyric of every government in Nigeria. As a security agent, it is your duty, as you are identifying the alleged sponsors of the protest, to identify those that can disrupt the protest. So the job of the security agencies is to provide ample security in such a way that you carry out your protest in a peaceful manner.
Omoshola, before we get into detail as regards the security concerns being raised, let me bring you back to what you said. You said protest seems to be the only language Nigerian governments seem to understand. Exactly. But my follow-up question to that is, how effective will you say these protests have been over the years? More often than not, the fallout of this protest is people come out for days. At some point it's almost like a jamboree, routine. And then maybe day 1, day 2, they go back and then they say they are negotiating, and all of that fizzles out. Nothing really substantial, you would say, comes out, except maybe on very few occasions. So my question is, how effective over the years have protests like, this one, the planned one, been, particularly for the average Nigerian? We saw what happened during the NSAS. Even though, the objective was noble, we saw the eventual turnout. Properties were destroyed, some lives were lost, and we are still back to this same conversation as regards police and civil, engagement when it comes to, interactions and brutality. So how effective will you say this protest have been?
You see, organic protests, there are two kinds of protests, protests that are sponsored to achieve a predetermined end, whether political end or by some specific interest group, whether to spoil the image of the government or something. And there are also organic protests. But if you look at it carefully in Nigeria, and I'll back it up with examples, organic protests have been largely successful. For instance, just recently, when that organic protest emerged with the king having power, meaning we are hungry, government responded swiftly by ordering the custom to start distributing the rice that have been seized. That is the effect of organic protest. It brings about government response during the EndSARS, which is also an organic protest. Although the protest was infiltrated by government-sponsored talks, because we saw videos whereby SUVs were used to carry trucks in Abuja. So it is government that disrupted the process by means of using trucks, but at least the process, protest was able to achieve something. So in Nigeria, if the protest is organic, imagine that, okay, the Nigerians just got tired of the government, and everybody is tweeting, is Facebooking, is Instagramming, and everybody is, protesting about it. Definitely, government will sit tight. Just as governors are holding meeting now, just as the president is, appealing, just as the security agencies are trying to look for the sponsors of the protest. You see, when the protest is organic, just like the removal of fuel subsidy in 2011 or 2012, organic protests like that, protests that emerge out of grievance from the people, protests that have the buying of the people are usually successful. If government just do not feel that it will be successful, they will just overrule it. Don't forget that when Sowore, came up with the Revolution Now protest, the protest did not meet the buying of the people because it wasn't organic. And Sowore himself has been seen as a political figure. So it was seen that because he lost the election against Buhari, he is trying to now bring up the protest just because he lost the election. So those are non-organic protests. But when you talk of organic protests, protests that emerge out of grievance, who is happy with the situation in Nigeria today? Do you know how many marriages? Do you know how many families that this economic...
Omoshola, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I need to bring in, of course, the second guest, on the program. Please, of course, join in the conversation at this time. Is Bamigboye Abiodun is the Secretary, Joint Action Front, that's JAF, or your state chapter. Thank you for joining me, Abiodun. Well, let me bring you in. Let me start with you by reading, part of what the DSS actually did release in form of a statement, pretty lengthy, but I'll just read part of it, expressing deep security concern as regards this forthcoming protest. Now, in their words, the DSS has followed the discourse on the planned protest in parts of the country in the coming weeks by persons and groups yet to identify themselves in the public. Now, while peaceful protest is a democratic right of citizens, the service has confirmed a sinister plan by some elements to infiltrate the protest and use it to cause chaos and extreme violence in the land. It has also identified the reason behind the protest to be political. I'd like you to react to this briefly.
Well, I think it's good that the DSS have been able to identify that there's a sinister motive of some few individuals trying to, disrupt, the looming protest. And I think given that kind of information, it therefore means that the DSS, given the fact that there is secret police of the Nigerian government, they should zoom into action and use their constitutional power, to arrest those individuals whom they have identified that they are, that they have a sinister motive of causing mayhem under the pretense of the protest. I think that is what I expect DSS to be doing at this time, not trying to use that as an argument, as a basis to deny Nigerian people of their right to a peaceful, protest.
All right, but looking at the idea of the protest itself, would you say that it's in place given the current situation of many Nigerians? Is that the way to go now?
Yes. Yes, what is a protest? Protest is a mere expression of dissatisfaction and displeasure over the way of life, people's life are being presided over. And you don't need a soothsayer to tell anybody that in Nigeria today, our condition has gone from bad to worse. Since 2023, when this government, came to place, people are dying on a daily basis. Do you know number of Nigerians that have died in the course of struggling to get palliative from one place to another? You heard of 2 students who died in Nasarawa. Before Nasarawa, 2 days before that, after that, we have, of a 14 years old, a female who died while struggling to get, palliative in Bauchi. We had out of Lagos in Yaba, when over 14 persons died in the course of trying to buy cheap rice, released by custom. All of these are indication of how much, the life of people have gone from bad to worse in the last 1 year. Under that kind of situation, you don't expect Nigerian people not to voice out. You can't be beating a child and you expect that child not to be able to cry. As parents, we have right to beat our child. But where our rights stop is when we are trying to tell the child we are beating not to cry. And I think that is exactly what is happening. Like the speaker in the studio pointed out, Nigerians are going through a lot of hardship at this time. And it is their legitimate right. Because it appears, our silence over years, it appears to the government as if Nigerians are comfortable with the way their life is being ruled. And perhaps that is why they continue to unleash attack on the Nigerian people on a daily basis. Perhaps by now, if Nigerian people voice out that they are not happy, comfortable with the way their life is being provided over, perhaps that is going to serve as a source of caution, to the Nigerian government, and begin to make policies that can serve as a relief to mass of Nigerian working people.
Okay, let me leave you for a moment, Abiodun. Let me come back to Omoshola. Omoshola, feel free to react if, of course, you would like to speak on some of the things, Abiodun has actually said. But my question to you is this. Do you think, or are you of the opinion that the Nigerian government truly is not in sync with the current realities of many Nigerians? We've seen that, recently this administration has put in motion some very aggressive policy initiative. One of it is, the local government collecting the allocations directly. Aside we've also seen palliative initiatives, even recently. In terms of allocation to states, right? But from the federal to the states, we've seen that it has, increased. So my question to you is this. The current administration, is it truly, looking at all the things they've done, since they resumed office, even though we know that a lot of Nigerians are suffering, from the end of the subsidy regime. But looking at it truly, will you say, or will it be fair to say that the administration is not in sync with the realities of the average Nigerian?
Well, the government, if I'm to be a fair examiner, has been more about persuasive lyrics, than action. What I've seen on the part of the government largely is you are trying to persuade people that to endure. But if you look at it on the part of the government, as government really been enduring, now, if it is a genuine action, you will not use, I think maybe 20 or 21 billion has to be corrected, to go and build the residence of the vice president. So you imagine that how many households would that 21 billion or that about feed? If you are truly concerned about the people, the issue of yacht won't even come up at all. If you are concerned about the people, the issue of presidential jets recently will not come up at all. If you are truly concerned about the people, the members of the National Assembly will not go and buy luxury SUVs. And you tend to imagine that all the people in the National Assembly from A to Z, these are people that at least have walked life a bit before they get to the National Assembly. So you will ask them that is it SUV that is their problem? Is it that they don't have fleet of cars? If they are truly loyal to the Nigerian state, Can't they take one of their cars out of all the cars that they have? Can't they take one to use it as the main, to use it for the main? So what we've had is we have a government and a president that keeps coming with this persuasive lyrics, but that is not transforming into a corresponding action in their attitude, in their mode of spending. Imagine, you know that you would have received economic brief, security brief before you were sworn in as president. Yes, when you want to appoint ministers, you appointed the highest number in the Nigerian history. As if that is not enough, you now created a new Ministry of Livestock Development, thereby duplicating the function of the Ministry of Agriculture. Except my teachers in primary and secondary school were wrong, agriculture is about livestock rearing and crop production. So the Ministry of Livestock Development should have ordinarily been made a department in the Ministry of Agriculture, but you now decide to create a ministry whereby you would employ people, structure, technology, manpower. A lot is at stake. And at the end of the day, you come on here, you would send your ministers and political hallelujah boys to come and tell Nigerians that please endure, give us more time. So, and that disconnect is making Nigeria.
All right, Omoshola, I'm sorry, I just have to interrupt you. We need to go on a quick break. When we return, of course, we will pick up from where we start. Stay with us. If you're just joining us, this is Politics HQ on NewsCentral Television, and we have been, of course, discussing the planned protest for August in Nigeria. I still have with me my guest, Omoshola Deji, is a political scientist, and Bamigboye Abiodun is the Secretary, Joint Action Front, JAF, or your state chapter. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Now, Omoshola, because, we are pressed for time, as regards this first half, quickly, what would you suggest that in the coming days, or maybe weeks, or maybe, hours, the government and civil society groups, Nigerians in general do, if at all, to avoid the protest or, to move the country forward? Because I know that at this moment, even, just today, the government had meetings with traditional rulers, top-tier traditional rulers, security chiefs, and, some key elements within his party. So what do you suggest as the last-minute, move for the government and, civil society groups, basically stakeholders in Nigeria?
I want to see a more engaging government rather than a defensive government. Because for people to buy into the protest, whether it is sponsored or not, it means that what the protest is addressing is truly the plight of the people. The protest will not have failed through if it doesn't affect the plight of the people. So I want to see a more engaging government. I want to see a more persuasive government whose political lieutenants will go all out to begin to persuade what the government is doing to the people. I want to see a government that would massively roll out palliative to the people. When I mean,
but I'm sorry to cut in here. Is palliative really a solution?
That's what I'm saying. That I don't mean giving them 2 cups of rice. I want to see great economic palliative. For instance, if you reduce the cost of electricity, if you reduce the cost of school food in tertiary, secondary, and primary level, this will bring relative income to the pocket of Nigerians. And for what of time, I am concerned about 2 things. Number one, I'm very concerned that this government doesn't seem to always act except the citizens decide to protest. That is when you see them acting. Number two, I am concerned that politics tends to be the pendulum, the operating switch of the Nigerian security agencies. You have capacity to identify sponsors of the protest, but you don't have capacity to identify those who can disrupt the protest and arrest them before the protest. You have capacity to say that do not protest, but you don't have capacity to protect the protesters itself. So it is very saddening when the security operative of a country that should operate with so much integrity is being subject to ridicule and political pendulum by the state itself, by the Nigerian government itself. That is very, very saddening. So I want to see a more independent security operative and policy. See, if you disrupt the process, the process, you are only buying time, because if you keep on coming with anti-market policies, if you remove cost subsidy, if you remove the subsidy on the naira to dollar, if you increase electricity tariff and the cost of goods and services keep going on by the day, definitely you are only buying time. So if government is successful in curbing this process, it is a signal for them to avoid the Kenya situation by going all out to move away from anti-market to pro-market policies, because whether you like it or not, this is one thing the president needs right now, because if the last election is anything to go by, those that don't want him in power are more than those that want him in power. What do I mean by that? The election that was conducted in Rwanda, the president of Rwanda had 90% of the vote. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did not have such votes. If you multiply the vote of people that voted for Kwakwanso, people that voted for Atiku, and people that voted for Peter Obi, they are more than the vote that he used to become president. What does that mean? That means that people that don't want you in power are naturally more than people that want you in power. So when you are now opportune to get hold of power under such system, your policies should be pro-market, not anti-market. Unfortunately, what we've largely had is anti-market
Omoshola, thank you so much.
Make life comfortable for the politicians and make life more difficult for the citizens.
Omoshola, thank you so much for your time on the program. Thank you.